Hello, it's Leslie here. I noticed that I have a few new subscribers, so thanks for joining if you're new to the channel. I haven't made any videos for quite some time because I've had some problems with my computer. I was meant to be building up a new computer. That didn't go so well, so I'm using the same old computer. So today I wanted to talk mainly about, uh, I guess, not so much motivation with language learning, but uh, negative self-talk, like the mindset. I think the mindset of learning languages is one of the most overlooked things. Like people talk about the methods and the study habits, but I think the mindset is one of the most important things you can have. The mindset. Like if you yourself don't believe that you can learn a language, then you're probably not going to be able to do it. It's usually the people that are very self-confident, like the polyglots that think, I can do this. They're the ones that usually succeed. And all the people that doubt themselves are usually the ones that quit or don't even try to begin with. So I think we as language learners underestimate this sort of confidence, self-confidence. I try to have self-confidence. However, don't think that it's easy for me and I don't ever have any self-doubt. I just try to deal with it, and I'll explain that further in the video. Uh, I think one of the best places to be is just learning one word at a time. I've heard it mentioned that, I've seen on other channels, learn phrases, learn this. I personally try to I don't do phrases, I learn one word at a time. And that's important for several reasons. I'll get back to all this, but the best place to be is looking up one word at a time. That's why it takes so long, because ultimately, if you want to be able to be fluent and express yourself however you want, then you have to learn each of the words individually. So phrases can only get you so far. Then you won't be able to have a proper conversation with just phrases. So that's a very bad piece of advice someone else gave. I saw on another channel, learn phrases. That might impress people for about 10 seconds, but I think learning one word is the best thing to do. Well, uh, which words do you look up? Well, the ones that appear most frequently. Like if you're seeing the same words appearing, and time and time again you don't know what they are, then those are the words to look up what they mean. And if you're not really that interested in looking up the most common words, well, you're probably not going to get very far. So you have to have some sort of curiosity there to be able to look up the words. But anyway, what I've noticed is that the times that I get most kind of negative about languages, and I start thinking, I've been doing this for years and I'm still not getting it. And this happens to me sometimes even every day still, even though I study these languages every day. Still, even these negative thoughts creep in sometimes almost every day. And often it happens. I'm watching this series Pisha Block Russian series, and it happened, and I was mostly understanding it. It's Russian subtitles, no English subtitles, and I'm mostly going by. And then I encountered this phrase, and I think this girl said to the other one, "Oh, by the way, that lotion you gave me stinks." And I didn't recognize the word lotion, and I didn't recognize the type of word that I don't know if that's the exact phrase, but I didn't recognize the verb gave or whatever word she used, and I didn't recognize the word stinks either. So that was three words that in one sentence that I didn't recognize, and I've been studying quite a while, so it doesn't happen that often. But when it happens, I've noticed, like if I only don't understand one word, most common situation if you're intermediate is not to understand one or two words. If it's just one word you don't know, you can almost guess what the word they're talking about. You can almost guess. That's the best place to be, is to not know just one word. When it's two words that you don't know, you do feel lost. When it's three words in a sentence that eventually you come across these three words, and you might be listening to the news or listening to some sort of legal terminology or whatever, you automatically feel like I didn't understand any of that whole sentence. And obviously you're not going to understand it, because I think the thing is, you're asking too much of yourself to try to understand sentences with words that you've never encountered. So if you try to think of it logically, well, you're not going to understand words you don't know yet. So try not to be too hard on yourself. I had never encountered the word lotion. The alternate word that she used, so that was the noun that I didn't understand. And then she used one of the verbs, gave or whatever it was. I didn't understand that type of word. Often there's two versions of any word. You could have smell or you could have stink. Well, I didn't know one of them, so I'm lost. And so I didn't understand the noun or the verb or the other verb. So I'm thinking, well, but the thing is, then, so I automatically I think, well, oh shit, maybe I don't understand as much of this Russian as I think I do. But actually, no, I understand the words that I remember in my vocabulary, my existing vocabulary. When people say them clearly, then I understand. But as I say, you're going to encounter words that you've never encountered before. And that's normal. And it even happens for me in English. Someone with a very high vocabulary can come along. It happened to me when I read a few Carl Sagan books. I encountered some English words I never even heard of before. So there's hundreds of thousands of English words. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, I speak English fluently, but I don't know every single English word in the dictionary. And the thing is, so I tried not to get too upset about it, but I've noticed that what I'm saying is automatically, as soon as it happens, I start thinking, I have this self-doubt. And I think that's when a lot of people quit in the very beginning, because they're just not getting any of it. So I try to quickly talk myself out of it and say, well, usually what happens if that happens, sometimes I've already looked up a lot of words that same day, and I just at that time when I encountered that sentence, I just stopped the program, and I thought, you know what, I don't feel like looking up 3 words right now. So I just paused it and thought, I've had enough. I'm not enjoying this. I've had enough today. I'll come back tomorrow and maybe look up the words tomorrow. I can't even remember when I looked them up. But try not to be too hard on yourself. It's normal. It's normal even for language learners. Any language learner that's not around in a family environment, learning it from their parents or whatever. I think it's normal to have these moments, and you just have to push through and just say, well, I'll do it next day, and little by little, learn these words that don't occur so frequently. Let me have a look at this letter. I was writing a letter to someone about some of these things. Now, the other thing is, I think it's too much. You're asking too much of yourself to understand 100% of everything you hear. Even if I'm watching an English movie, I sometimes don't understand everything people say even in an English movie. So people mumble, or there's background noise, or there's music, or whatever. And some people are easier to understand than others. It might be actors mumble, or they use slang. So even in English, we don't always understand every single thing we hear or see. So that's why we say, well, what did you say? Or can you repeat that? But then when it happens in another language as we're learning, we think, oh, well, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. But just try to remember that just remind yourself that you don't understand everything, even in your own language, It happens all the time to me. A friend calls me up with the Wi-Fi app, like WhatsApp over Wi-Fi, and I tell him, don't call me up on Wi-Fi because I can't hear everything he's saying. The signal's very bad. But when he does, sometimes I only understand literally 50% of what he's saying, and I either have to pretend to understand or say, "Can you repeat that?" and look like an idiot 5 times in a row. But the point what I'm trying to make is that if there's a lot of noise, or if they mumble, and what my friend does is he'll be doing something else, and the microphone, he won't have his phone like this, he'll be doing something else, getting lazy with communication, and then you don't hear everything. And the same happens in other languages, and when it happens, we think it's because we're not getting the language, but maybe it's actually not our fault. Maybe it's the movie that we're watching, or the other person not speaking clearly enough, or whatever. So I try not to be too hard on myself, and when I don't understand something, I think, well, maybe I'll just let that go. I won't pause that. I won't rewind that. It's not fundamental to me understanding everything. We don't. If you're talking to your friend and he says something and you not get 100%, you don't always have to say, "Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that?" Some people sort of uh, just say, "Yeah, yeah," and they might not have actually heard or understood 100%, but they sort of just push through and just keep going, because sometimes it's going to be rude, or you look like stupid, or you're deaf if you ask people to repeat themselves over and over again. So keep that in mind. Uh, that's what I was going to say there. I try to compare myself, say, to a child learning the language that I'm learning. Like, would a child, if I've studied a language 3 years, 3 or 4 years, would a 3 or 4 year old child be listening to crime series and thrillers and comedies? They probably wouldn't. So try to sort of think, well, where am I at the moment? And just don't be too hard on yourself. It's better to just see, if you are sort of thinking, if you sort of think, well, I'm not getting this, and these emotions are not, you're not enjoying yourself anymore, it's probably time for a break. I usually think, you know what, just come back tomorrow and then you'll enjoy it more. So that's what I do. I think it's better to have a daily study habit than to try and understand everything for one exact hour every single day without any break. It doesn't work like that. The other thing is, people have this idea that, you know, you learn all these languages say you go to a course. You've got to go to a course to learn a language. Children don't learn languages that way. If you've got an English speaking kid, he really never went to an English course, did he? He got exposed to that language as with the parents at kindergarten, at school. He never actually, or she, the kid, never went to uh, a lecture theatre to learn their language. It's all the way to do it is really the best way is immersion. So I think there's a lot of myths, and I might, with learning languages, there's a lot of myths, and I'll cover these maybe more detail later on. But I think one of the myths is that children are learn languages like a sponge, and they have an advantage. I actually starting to think that it's the opposite. That no, adults don't have a sponge memory, but we have advantages. Adults have advantages for learning languages and methods, and we choose what TV programs we're going to watch. We can look up words in the dictionary. We already know the meaning and the significance of words, concepts, terms, whatever. Kids have to learn all of that. I've mentioned that before. So that's one myth that I think, don't go there. Don't compare yourself to a kid that's you can compare yourself to the progress, but don't compare yourself to a kid and get jealous of some child like 5 years old, because actually, in a way, it kind of sucks to be a kid. You've got to do everything what the adults tell you. You know, I mentioned it before. Would you really want to go, if you wanted to learn French, would you really want to be going to French kindergarten and then have to go to French primary school and French high school just to learn French? Probably not. So, so that's one thing, one myth I think people should just don't even don't start thinking that kids have an advantage, because actually it's you who probably has the advantage. You can also choose what languages you learn. A 5-year-old kid just gets the language sort of imposed on him. There's another myth that as adults we can't learn new languages, or it's harder. That's a similar myth, but it's, I think there's a, it is a sort of a separate thing that people think, well, after we're beyond a certain age, our brain will not be able to be fluent, or that we're going to have more trouble. I also think, well, no, because there's plenty of expatriates who move to a country and will pick it up pretty quickly. So I don't think that it's impossible for older people. I think it is harder to get the words to stick in our head. But that's one of the reasons why I like to watch series, because the words, you're getting 1,000 words every, I don't know, whatever it is, half an hour. You're getting thousands of words drummed into you all the time, every day, and they'll eventually stick in your head. There's another myth that you have to be in the country to learn it, and I don't always think that's the case. I think it helps. It certainly helps to have people to talk to, but I think you can actually pick up a language, at least passively, like meaning understand it, just by immersion. So I'm doing the series, and I'm actually not doing too badly in my understanding when I hear these Finnish series. I have not set foot in Finland since I started this journey, and yet I'm able to understand what they're saying if it's simple sentences. So I don't think you automatically have to be living in the country of the target language. And it's been mentioned elsewhere, some people move to other countries and don't even know 10 words. So that alone, moving to the country, doesn't automatically give you this sort of immersion. So, if I'll say that again, just because you move to a certain country, it doesn't automatically give you enough immersion to learn that language. And by the same token, you can then go out of your way to find this content and be immersed in it without leaving your own home. So you couldn't do this sort of thing 10 or 20 years ago, but actually today with streaming and everything and the amount of content out there, it's quite amazing. So there's never really been a better time to learn languages as now. So yeah, I think my best advice, if you've just started joining this channel, is don't just jump in and start watching the series straight away. Do a simple course first. Learn maybe 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 words or something like that. Learn a bit of a core vocabulary first, so you're not having to pause it every 3 seconds. Learn some words first. Learn a bit of grammar first. And then probably after you've learned that, the sooner you can start watching something, the better, probably, because it'll like, what's that word? I'm forgetting my English. The word that means it's gone. See, this is what happens. My English is gone to shit. Yeah, I literally can't remember that word anymore. Anyway, I can't pause the video, so I'll have to continue. But I'm coming about to the end of what I wanted to say. I'll recap. I don't think don't try to understand 100% of every single thing. Maybe that's easier if you're reading a book and you're reading a book, okay, but audio is a bit different. I in the beginning, I don't try to understand everybody in every series. Some actors are, for me, notoriously hard to understand, and others seem to be far easier. I don't know if it's their voice or they might be their character, they speak in a different way. So, what I try and do is then, rather than try to understand the most difficult to understand people, I try to just think, well, understand everything from the person that find easier to understand. Try and just focus on them, or it might be a character you like, especially like. Just focus on them. The ones that you can't understand, that's their problem. You can't really understand them. Just don't worry so much about that. So, the other thing is I wanted to say is it's normal to have these doubts. Like some people talk to me and say, oh, you've got an aptitude for learning languages. I don't think they realise that I struggle too with it. I struggle every day. I do sometimes get a bit over looking up new words and I think, oh, another word, I don't know. And I just do it. It's not, I don't think it's that easy, if you want to call it that. I don't think it's that easy for anyone. It's just that I have this curiosity and I have a commitment to it. And also, the other thing is I wanted to say is I'm also prepared to give up certain things. Like I don't like Australian television anymore, so I'm actually prepared to completely give up Australian television. That's one of the questions I'll put to you. If you want to learn another language like Russian or Finnish or whatever, are you actually, say you're Canadian, right? Are you actually prepared to be a little bit less Canadian and a little bit more Russian or a little bit more Finnish or whatever? So that's what you got to kind of ask yourself, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of time commitment to learn any language. Are you prepared to sort of sacrifice some of your own language and listen to less English or less whatever native language it is and more of the other one? So if you're prepared to give up some of your own language, and then you're probably in a good place. The thing with that though is I'm now starting to feel like a foreigner in my own country. I don't necessarily identify with other Australian people or monolingual people so much. So it's a bit of a strange place to be, because I kind of got a foot in other cultures now, and I sometimes feel a little lost because I don't identify that well with other Australian people. So I actually feel less Australian, believe it or not. But there you go. So I hope I've given you some things to think about. As I say, I just try to learn one word at a time, and take one day at a time. And I kind of try not to think about all the time that's passed and think, well, where am I at? I think it probably takes about, maybe 3 to 5 years to learn a language. And so maybe after a few years, I think, well, where am I at? The progress is very extremely slow. And even children, consider that it takes children take years to learn a language. An 8 or 9 or 10-year-old kid has been exposed to languages for 7 or 8 years of their life, or even when they're a baby, whatever. So then they haven't just been doing it 3 months. So I try to think, well, it's going to take 5 years. It's going to take, say, 5 years to learn it at an advanced level. And try not to become too down about it. It's a very time intensive process. It takes thousands of hours. I've started to watch more television and less on the internet, less on my desktop computer, less on the laptop, and just transfer over to the television. I'll make another video about that. I recently bought 2 new televisions, an LG and a Samsung, and I also bought an Amazon Fire Stick and a Google Chromecast. I recommend the Google Chromecast. I probably will make a video about that because I've got some important things to say about that. But I'm very happy with my Chromecast device. I think it's a lot more comfortable to watch things with the television, and since going over the TV and less on the desktop, less sitting like at a desk like this, it's just more comfortable, and I find myself listening to more than an hour per day, which seems to be speeding up the process. So I think that's all I wanted to say today. I will also mention one last thing. My sister once said to me, I don't know, when you're learning a language, how do I know what word to put where in the sentence? How do I know what the order of the words is? Well, the thing is, start with shorter sentences, and like little, the cat is on the car, and things, short little sentences, or the red wall, or whatever it might be, but little by little, and then build up bigger sentences using the connector words. As you learn one word at a time, things start to make more sense about the structure of the language, the grammar. It makes a lot more sense. It almost becomes automatic. You'll know what words to put where. So, but again, you're asking too much of yourself. If you see a paragraph in a foreign language, of course you're not going to know any of it to begin with. So it's better to focus on like picture books, like dictionary picture books first, and just learn one word at a time, and then build from that, So that's all I have time for today. I'll try to make more videos as I come through, 2,000 subscribers. I'm still not earning any money with this channel because this YouTube requires 4,000 watch hours in the last year. So I had that in the first year, but it's dropped off because I'm not publishing videos as frequently. But I'll probably reach that eventually, maybe at 2,500 subscribers or 3,000, and then I probably will start making more videos because I might actually be earning something out of it. But at the moment, it's just almost like I'm volunteering this time. So thank you for watching. Just stick with it. Everybody has all these language learners out there. It's not easy for anyone. It's normal to feel frustrated. It's normal to feel negative. It's normal to feel like you're not getting it. It's normal to feel like, I can't remember this word. How many times have I had to look up this? It's all normal. It's completely normal. Everyone has to go through it, especially as an adult, like a mature adult. I think it's normal. Just, you can identify with other people a bit more that way and think, this is normal. So just think, keep at it, and that's the thing that will eventually pay off. All right, that's all for today. I think it's been a long video. Thank you for watching. Bye.